We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, right here on GB News, where I speak up for you, the forgotten majority. Coming up on tonight's show. The economy is sinking, the borders are broken, and free speech seems more at risk than ever before. Have the left wing and the Labour Party completely lost the plot? I'll be talking through this week's bombshell events. And a convicted Egyptian terrorist who entered Britain illegally and then went on to rape a woman in London's Hyde Park could appeal his deportation. But how on earth did this monster get into the country in the first place? I'm going to be talking to a top security official about that tonight. Elsewhere, our economy is teetering on the brink, with tax rises apparently inevitable and government borrowing now spiralling out of control. But could our new tech deal with the United States of America help to save us? I'll be debating that tonight. And in our final section, Matt in Conversation, I'm going to be speaking to a prominent Republican campaigner to find out what the average American thinks about the UK's immigration crisis. That's Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, starts right now. Now, we'll also be joined tonight by my panel, commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and journalist and broadcaster Kai Wilshaw. As ever, though, I want to hear your views tonight. You can reach us on gbnews.com/your say. Of course, you can reach us on X at GB News. You'll find me at Goodwin MJ. But now it is time for the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed, Matt. Good evening to you. Our headlines. An Iranian man has become the third person to be removed from the UK under the one-in, one-out deal with France. It follows the removal of an Eritrean man earlier on Friday. He lost a High Court bid to prevent his removal, and the deportation of an Indian national on Thursday. Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy says the deal is providing an immediate deterrent to people seeking to cross the Channel. However, hundreds of migrants left northern France earlier, attempting to make that journey. People smugglers near Calais and Dunkirk launched multiple boats at first light, following 9 days of windy weather which prevented crossings. GB News understands at least 800 migrants are expected to have made the journey. An elderly British couple released after being detained in Afghanistan for almost 8 months have landed safely in Qatar. There were emotional scenes in Doha earlier as 76-year-old Barbie Reynolds and her husband Peter, who's 80, were reunited with their daughter Sarah. They will undergo medical checks in the Gulf state before returning to Britain. A man's been jailed for 14 years for child sex offences against 39 young girls he catfished by pretending to be a 14-year-old boy. Stuart Latham raped a 12-year-old girl and targeted hundreds of others by posing as a 14-year-old on Snapchat. He preyed on girls using a fake online persona to obtain indecent images from them with a promise of cash or gifts in return, and he also threatened to reveal them online if they didn't do as he wished. The British and Irish governments have announced a new joint framework to deal with the legacy of the Northern Ireland Troubles. It includes an overhaul of the commission that looks into deaths in Northern Ireland during the conflict and replaces the 2023 Legacy Act that cancelled inquests and prosecutions and was opposed by Labour, all Northern Ireland parties, victims groups and the Irish government. Northern Ireland Secretary Hilary Benn says it addresses the unfinished business of the Good Friday Agreement. Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris has described the deal as a night and day improvement on the current measures. Scottish Government Minister Jamie Hepburn's resigned after being accused of assaulting the Conservative MSP Douglas Ross. Ross said the Parliament Minister grabbed him and swore aggressively at him as he left the Holyrood chamber on Wednesday. Hepburn says he merely put his hand on the former Scottish Tory leader's shoulder, but did admit to using some choice words. Finally, one of the world's most active volcanoes is erupting again. Kilauea volcano on Hawaii's Big Island is spraying fountains of lava into the air. It is the 31st eruption in less than a year. The volcano's activity is closely monitored. The new incident has not threatened any homes. Those are your headlines for the moment. Now it's back to Matt.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, a big question. Am I the only one in this country who feels like we have now fully entered the twilight zone? Just look at the shocking events this week that have unfolded in this country. Earlier today, we learned that many of the at-risk Afghans who our politicians smuggled into the country while gagging the press and refusing to tell you, the people, what was going on, well, now we learn that some of them have gone back to Afghanistan on holiday, and that they forged their original documents in their case for coming to the UK in the first place. So Keir Starmer also this week told President Trump the UK has always had free speech. Check this out.
I draw a limit between free speech and the speech of those that want to peddle paedophilia and suicide social media to children, and therefore I'm all for free speech. I'm also for protecting children from things that will harm them, paedophiles, those that peddle suicide, which has had a terrible consequence for individual, particularly teenagers. And so that's the balance we strike.
I'm all for free speech, says Keir Starmer, at the very same time as police visited a stage 4 cancer patient to tell her to apologise for what she wrote on Facebook, or she would be hauled off to the local police station. The Labour government also voted to change sentencing laws that will see rapists and paedophiles, including people who pay children under 13 years of age for sex, who rape children and create indecent images of children, released from prison early after serving 1/3 of their sentence. Meanwhile, a Labour minister also stood up in the House of Commons this week and said that Islamic Sharia courts, which directly violate our tradition of separating church and state, are part of, get this, what makes us British.
Does the new Secretary of State for Justice recognise Sharia law and Sharia courts in the United Kingdom? Yes or no?
Sharia law forms no part of the law of England and Wales, but in common with Christian, Jewish and other courts of faith where people choose to put themselves before those councils, that's part of the religious tolerance that is an important British value.
Well, there you go then. No problem. Nothing to see here. We also learned that the Labour government since April has spent an eye-watering £50 billion just paying the interest on our country's out-of-control credit card. And we learned that people who are not working and on welfare can claim an income of £25,000 a year, which is more than the post-tax £22,500 that workers on the national living wage earn. In which case, why work? We also learned that the average home in London is no longer affordable for any household income group, and we learned that net zero lunacy is now going to push up our energy bills next year by another £100. And we learn that Sadiq Khan's Transport for London officials have been suppressing taxpayer-funded research that found low-traffic neighbourhoods, another extreme net zero measure, do not reduce the use of cars. And we learned a senior police officer from West Yorkshire deliberately blocked attempts to investigate rape gangs targeting a children's home in Bradford, while Labour continues to drag its heels on a national inquiry into those hideous rape gangs. And we learn British taxpayers are having to pay £252 million to cover up unpaid medical costs for foreign citizens, medical treatments and costs that have not yet been covered. And on the same day, the British people discovered an Egyptian asylum seeker who raped a woman in London's Hyde Park is also a convicted Islamist terrorist who was staying in a 4-star Hilton hotel paid for by British taxpayers. Labour's new Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, meanwhile, was dropping social media videos this week as if she'd personally assassinated Osama bin Laden, having managed to remove, 2 illegal migrants from the country. Just 2. All this, in a word, is insane. It's outrageous. It's absurd. It's making a mockery of the British people. It's making a mockery of our country, which is no doubt why also this week the Reform Party surged to 34% in the national polls, while Labour and the Tories are both now down to 16% of the national vote each, which is the lowest ever share of the vote for the Labour Party in polling history. Well, look, this is why the country is in a mess, because of all of those problems I've just listed. This is why Labour is on the verge of collapse. This is why you see a new political party polling 34% of the vote. A revolution is indeed in the air. Can we please get back to some semblance of being a serious, stable, competent government and a country that looks after and prioritises its own people? Well, we now welcome former Labour Party advisor Paul Richards to discuss all of this. Paul, I've gone through all of the events this week. I've gone through all of the news stories this week. I am shocked, usually, but this week we have plunged to new lows, have we not?
Well, if that's all you believed and you woke up and just read that and thought that was the only story, then yes, you wouldn't want to get out of bed, would you? But
well, give me some good news, Paul. What's the good news?
Sides to every story, isn't there? So
what's the good news?
I think the Trump visit, for example, the state visit, has been an unmitigated success. It's been very good for Britain on the world stage, and with that has come this £150 billion investment deal in tech, which was going to create jobs. I mean, they're talking about 7,000 jobs, but I think it'll be more than that over the time that the job investment takes place. So that's going to be a lot of people in work that perhaps wouldn't otherwise been in work. That's good. Waiting lists in the National Health Service are getting under control. Believe it or not, we've had the fastest growth in the G7 with the figures on the economy.
The economy's, come on, the economy's at 0%. Let's put this in perspective.
But it's still better than everyone else, and it's the whole world economy is in the doldrums, and we're doing a bit better than the rest. So that's
okay. Can I just pin you on one thing that we saw this week in that press conference, because I'm curious. I agree, it was a wonderful moment actually for US-UK relations, and I'm a bit of a fanboy when it comes to America. So it was wonderful scenes. But Donald Trump did pull Keir Starmer to one side essentially in that press conference and say, look, let's be frank. Illegal migration, to quote him directly, destroys countries, and he would send in the military. What did you make of that intervention?
Well, that is what Donald Trump believes, isn't it? And we know that because that's what he's done in America. He's put troops on the streets and all the rest of it. But that's not the British way. So that's not something we're going to do in this country.
What's the British way, Paul? Total chaos.
The one in, one out scheme is working now. I know you can mock the numbers.
Come on, Paul. 3 out, 800 in today. 3 out, 800 in today.
It is the start of a process that will start to deter people getting on those terrible boats in the first place. And the best news of all, of course, is that the Jeremy Corbyn party has imploded and they're all threatening each other with legal action. So that's something surely around which we can all unite and celebrate this Friday night.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just curious, though, if I can. 16% of the vote, the lowest ever share of the vote for Labour in polling history. How do you explain that?
It reminds me a little bit of the first year of Mrs. Thatcher when she was desperately unpopular and everyone was.
I don't think she was on 16%, Paul.
Muttering darkly about getting rid of her, and she went on for another 8 years because you take the tough decisions in the first few months and years, and then as things pay off down the line, people come back to you, and in real elections, those figures I don't think will be replicated. So
Well,
yeah, it is grim, but I do
pause
think
that.
it's recoverable for Labour.
Pause that thought, because maybe the country is about to come en masse back to the Labour Party. Maybe. I'm joined now by tonight's panel, the commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and journalist and broadcaster Kai Wilshaw. Lara, I've just read out a whole host of things that I found particularly shocking this week. And I mean, I could have picked another 10, 15. It just sort of feels as though you look at the polling now, 16% for Labour, it just feels like the wheels are completely coming off now.
I think this is the case. I mean, it's pretty terrible looking at the country at the moment. We've got borrowing prices soaring, but we're borrowing more than ever. Labour Party can't get on, they're falling out. They can't pass any legislation. They can't do cuts because people won't vote for them. They also can't rise taxes where they made promises about it. I don't know how they're going to govern for 4 more years. I believe they'll try, but it's going to be a mess.
Was there anything this week that particularly stuck out to you of all of the things that I just referenced? Is there anything you think that really sort of cut through the debate?
I think the one in, one out fallout isn't getting enough attention because of Trump. We were promised that this was the solution to illegal migration. This was the deterrent. And what we have seen over the last 4 days is a surge of people being pulled off flights at the last minute. Because as I said on GBNews a few months back when it was first announced, because the rules of the deal say that if you can mount any legal challenge, however confected it is, you get off the flight and you get to have that fight. Everyone's now going to learn, oh, just say you're a modern-day slave, whatever the facts are. That's not going to work. That's Labour's last go at stopping the boats, stopping the gangs falling apart.
Kai Wilshaw, I mean, just take this boat issue, the one in, one out. Well, at the moment, it's 3 out, 800 in, and that's just one day. I mean, this is the biggest gimmick that we have ever had from a government, a Labour Party, that attacked the Rwanda plan for months and years as being a gimmick. I mean, this is the definition of a gimmick.
No. I mean, the Rwanda plan was both a gimmick and a huge white elephant, an albatross that led to the Conservative Party's demise. No, look, the figures, of course, they look bad, 800 in, 3 out. But what the Home Secretary, the new Home Secretary, is doing is quite methodically, I think, going through different scenarios. And for this one, for instance, it's the modern slavery debate. Now, she came out and said, this is making a mockery of our laws, and we'll review the modern slavery laws that we have.
But why she...
And then as other asylum seekers, or so-called asylum seekers, go through different various legal finagles to try and get out of it, then they'll move on to those. She's a very serious Home Secretary who's actually looking at what we've done already, which is a huge suite of different policy initiatives, which I think will bear fruit, and I think actually we will stop the boats and smash the gangs by the end of this Parliament.
She's
doing that, and then also putting in check the legal aid and legal cases that come out of it.
Just for people sitting at home, you do understand how ridiculous this whole thing looks to the average person out there on the street. We've had 180,000 people come in illegally. The Pew Research Centre estimates we might have more than 1 million, more than 1.2 million illegal migrants already in the country. And we've had another 800 cross today, and we're now being told that the removal of 3 people is a success story. I mean, Shabana Mahmood is making videos on social media as though she's just taken out the head of ISIS.
But we've also, this comes in the context of the thousands of deportations that the Labour government has already brought in, way more than any previous government in recent years. But look, anybody who tells you that there are easy decisions, that are win-win scenarios with policy areas this complicated is a liar and a charlatan. They are trying, you say serious, stable and competent is what we want from a government. That's what they're doing. It seems like some of the commentariat don't want to see what that looks like.
Lara Brown, if I can just put you up, the other thing that happened that I didn't quite mention was the defection of Danny Kruger to Reform. And now we've seen Reform go up to 34% with Find Out Now. We've seen Labour crash to 16%. I mean, how's Westminster interpreting these pretty seismic shifts in the polls?
So I think there's 2 things here. There's the polls and there's the defection. so far, before Kruger, Reform had collected some quite unimpressive people. No one was terrified to see Nadine Dorries go. No one was that stressed about Jake Berry, author of Net Zero, going. But Kruger was a really respected figure. He was known as being the intellectual heavyweight behind a lot of Cameron's early speeches. He was due to run Robert Jenrick's leadership campaign when that happened at some point. So he has left a real vacuum of intellectual energy behind in the Conservatives. I'm not sure who will pick up that mantle, so there's a lot of fear about that. The polls are a shock. They've been going that way for a very long time. Reform are having a very good time in the polls. The only real question, I think, for the next 4 years is, can Farage hold that momentum?
Well, we will continue to debate and discuss all of this. Still to come on tonight's show, we're going to be looking at a convicted Egyptian terrorist. You're not going to believe this. I don't believe this. It's absolute lunacy. Who entered Britain illegally, then went on to rape a woman in London's Hyde Park, where he now could appeal his deportation outside of the country. We're going to be asking, how did this monster, utter monster, get into Britain in the first place? I'll be talking to a top security official in 1 minute.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live starts Monday night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So, it is really, really tough, but it's also tough for people who are blind, people who are like pushing buggies, wheelchair users. I mean, my late father was a wheelchair user, and, back in the day, we'd have to sort of get him off the road, and then we'd be in the road, and then we'd have to get him back up onto the pavement again. And that's a big price to pay for somebody who's not prepared to walk around the block and think they have the right to, park on the pavement.
Maria, how do you think it should work? Do you think this needs to be a national ban on pavement parking, or do you think it should be led by councils, so councils decide area by area where you're allowed to park?
I think it should be a mix. I think what we should do is have a blanket ban on pavement parking, and then what councils can do is, there's certain roads, there's one here in Exeter where the road is very narrow and the pavements are very wide. I'm not quite sure why, but, it's perfectly safe to park on there. So like a street like that would be fine. And I think one of the problems at the moment is legislation. It's just so unclear, because there's this rule which says that you must not park on the pavement in London and Scotland, but you should not do it elsewhere. So it becomes a bit of a moral maze. And I think that, just to make that clearer about what people should do, because a lot of people sort of think, well, I can do it. And of course, traffic wardens can't do anything about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. This is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. The Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, you're not going to believe this. In an outrageous, absurd discovery, London's Hyde Park rapist, a man called Abdulrahman Adnan Abu Layla, has been revealed to have also been a convicted Islamic terrorist, a member of Muslim Brotherhood. After being sentenced to over 8 years in prison, Abu Layla is supposed to be deported, but he may be able to appeal his deportation on the grounds that a return to Egypt could breach his rights under the European Convention on Human Rights. the ECHR. How is it that a convicted rapist, a terrorist and an illegal migrant can stay in the UK due to a breach of his rights? It's absolutely bonkers. Well, I'm delighted now to welcome the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, Chris Phillips, to discuss this case. Chris, let me just ask you the question everybody out there is thinking. How on earth was this guy even allowed into our country to begin with?
Good evening, Matt. Yes, it's all the issues of immigration brought together in one case here, isn't it? The simple fact is this man should have been deported as soon as he arrived in the UK, but no, he wasn't. He was given 17 months in a hotel where he was allowed to, I would say, probably commit other crimes as well, but we don't know that. But the simple fact is any known terrorist should have been deported immediately. And whoever's had 17 months to deal with this in the Home Office should be ashamed of themselves, and actually they should be named and shamed.
I completely agree with you. I was just going to say every official who worked on this case should be named and shamed. We have to start revealing who these officials are who are allowing these guys into the country. So let's just be clear. He was a convicted terrorist. I read he'd been involved in a sort of bomb-making facility. He was allowed into our country. He was then allowed to roam the streets for 17 months while the Home Office ummed and ahed about the case. And he then went on, as we have tragically discovered, to sexually assault, to rape a woman in London's Hyde Park. I suspect, to be frank, he's probably not the only convicted terrorist walking around this country. But this case is utterly absurd. So, you know, what happens now, Chris? I mean, what is the response now? I assume he will use some activist lefty lawyer to use the ECHR to say, well, I shouldn't be deported. What do we need to do to get these monsters out of the country and to ensure that no more of them come into this country?
Well, you bring up a good point there, Matt, which is how we don't know how many people that have come across on the boats are convicted criminals or convicted terrorists in particular. And I think someone needs to do a Freedom of Information Act request to the Home Office to find that out, because we are allowing these people to come over. And yes, many of them will be quite innocent people, but we don't need very many of these people that are terrorists to create absolute mayhem in our country. You know, the poor woman that was raped is a completely innocent victim in this, but it could have been a terrorist attack. This is a bomb maker. He's convicted of bomb making in Egypt. And how many others we have, and it's not only, of course, terrorists, it's serious organised criminals. We know that this route is being used to bring in organised criminals, and the government that fails to deal with it shouldn't be in power.
I'm beyond angry, Chris, beyond furious. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to bring in the panel. Lara Brown from The Spectator and Kai Wilshaw. Lara, as Chris just said, this is a perfect storm of all the variables that are usually associated with these cases. We've got a convicted terrorist, we've got a sexual assault, we've got the use of the ECHR. We've also got British taxpayers paying to put this guy in a 4-star London hotel, the Hilton Hotel, which is also equally outrageous. I mean, how do you make sense of this anymore?
I mean, this is a horrifying case. I would actually quite like to see a proper national inquiry into what happened here, because this encapsulates so much of what is wrong with the system. This man came to this country and he was imposed on a community. We have been, as taxpayers, paying for his presence here. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, did the Home Office become aware of his conviction? And I would like to know what research was done, what background checks were doing, before trying to let him roam free. And this sums up the dangers of allowing people with no documentation, not knowing who they are, to roam the streets free. We don't have that with anyone else, and I hope Labour will finally stop doing that. Let this case be the final lesson.
Kai Wilshaw, we've heard a lot from people on the left recently saying, stop weaponising sexual violence, stop talking about cases like this to make an argument against immigration. None of those people, as far as I'm aware, have said anything about this woman who was assaulted and raped in Hyde Park. And I'll talk about these cases until the cows come home, because this stuff matters. How on earth can Labour possibly explain their way out of this one?
No, look, Nobody doubts that this is incredibly important. It's a harrowing case. The government knows this is a mess that they inherited, by the way. I know we keep going on about it.
And
It's only been just
10
over a
times
year.
worse.
The backlog's coming down, the costs are coming down, and we know that the makeup of small boats immigration has meant that, we're seeing people throwing passports away and so on. That needs to be dealt with through sensible means. But let me just get to your question. I think there's an insidious cherry-picking and sort of a highlighting of these cases day in, day out in the media, and that is an agenda. Out of over 1 million prosecutions in this country, over 1 million a year, all we hear about is asylum seekers and migrants, small boat crossers who make up, a couple of tens of thousands every year? I mean, why is that? Why is that? That's why I think the left are right to raise that. Because even though, yes, this is clearly making a mockery of our laws, as Shabana Mahmood has said, why is it that we are always so laser-focused on these individual cases that will always happen in any society and not focused on actually systemic change? Laura?
I think there's two things here. The first is there is an overrepresentation in the figures that has been borne out over and over again. The review into grooming gangs carried out by Casey found that there's an overrepresentation of asylum seekers in the cases of grooming. So that needs to be dealt with. The second thing is the left only, there's not 1 million sexual assaults prosecutions. It's far, far less. The left only care about these other prosecutions when they want to detract from the Hyde Park rape. Go and focus on those issues. Go and fight for justice for those women and girls. But it's something they only hear raised to say, don't worry about that, ignore that, let this woman not get justice because we're going to focus on other things that happen.
I'm not saying that we ignore this case or indeed any sexual assault or rape cases, but what I'm saying is that that's all we hear about, and nobody is trying. Surely you're not saying that the government thinks, oh, those crimes are fine. What's more important is the rights of the asylum seekers. I know that everybody wants to make it out to be that way, but it is not. And I think it's so unfair and really quite crude sometimes to see people try and paint Labour ministers and the Labour government as uncaring for victims of sexual assault.
But I think what I want to talk about here is the law. And the law does weigh the asylum seeker's rights higher than the rights of the victim. If this man manages to mount a human rights claim and is successful, there'll be no regard for the crime in deciding if he can stay. And that is quite terrifying for me. That is a balancing of rights against victims.
I agree, but I think Shabana Mahmood and indeed Yvette Cooper before her are taking steps. The reforming human rights in this country is clearly needed. This approach with the sort of methodical one-in, one-out process, trying to look through the different avenues that people take, different legal avenues that people take, and methodically going through and neutering those avenues is something that they're going to be doing. Suspending visas for countries that won't accept returned failed asylum seekers. All of these things are tactics that the government will continue to use. But it's ridiculous to expect that all this can be done in a day.
Well, we're out of time, I'm afraid, but we will continue to follow this case closely, very closely. But still to come on tonight's show, the economy is teetering on the brink, with tax rises inevitable, apparently, and government borrowing now spiralling completely out of control. But could our new tech deal with America help to save us? We'll be talking about that in 1 minute, right here on GB News.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hot weather continues across the Canaries. It will turn a little cooler here into next week. Plenty of fine and sunny weather for Greece and Turkey, although a bit of a brisk breeze blowing across some of the Greek islands. Lots of sunshine too for Italy during the weekend, and indeed for much of eastern and southern Spain. But we will see increasing cloud and some showers over northern Spain and northern Portugal during Saturday afternoon. It is hot in Tenerife, but those temperatures just dipping off a little bit into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a wet start to the weekend for some, with a Met Office warning in force for heavy rain across northern and western areas. A much chillier day for all from Sunday onwards. Back to this evening though, and we've got this lingering weather front slowly edging its way southwestwards, dragging in some cloud and plenty of outbreaks of rain. This is set to continue through the overnight period, pushing more outbreaks of rain across parts of Wales, southwest England. This could be heavy at times. Otherwise, skies, it should be mostly dry, just a few blustery showers clipping into the far northwest of Scotland and western coasts of Northern Ireland, but with plenty of cloud around, it should be a mostly mild night, temperatures dropping between 8 to 9 degrees Celsius in Scotland. Then to start off the weekend, in Scotland, yes, we're still going to continue to see blustery showers across the far north and northwest. Elsewhere, though, it should be mostly dry. Some showers starting to clip western coasts of Northern Ireland, and it is going to be a very wet start across northern parts of England, similar across Wales and southwest England too, where we could still see some quite heavy downpours of rain first thing on Saturday. Now, this system will slowly try to edge its way southeastwards. It's fairly slow moving, but it will eventually move into central parts of England, parts of the south too. A rain warning has been issued, so a chance we could see some localised flooding. A mix of sunny spells and showers across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, perhaps merging into some areas of persistent rain across Northern Ireland later. Staying mostly dry across the southeast, that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures. Not feeling quite as warm as Friday, but highs still reaching around 23 degrees Celsius. Now on Sunday, there are still set to be some spells of rain, turning into brighter spells and showers by the afternoon. But with a northerly flow of wind, things are set to feel a little bit chillier, particularly across Scotland in the strengthening breeze. Into next week, it should be mostly dry and sunny, but the chilly feel is here to stay, and it's likely we'll even start to see some overnight frost.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin, right here on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, in another blow to Rachel Reeves, the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, has revealed that the government has borrowed 50% more than previously planned for this August, from a projected £12.5 billion to a staggering £18 billion, which represents a 5-year high in public borrowing. Now, the multi-billion-pound black hole is only getting bigger and bigger. The question is Rachel Reeves on borrowed time? Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by tonight's panel, commissioning editor at The Spectator, Lara Brown, and journalist and broadcaster, Kai Wilshaw. Kai, one of the numbers that stuck out to me this week, 50 billion quid on the debt interest that we have since April. 50 billion just servicing our national credit card. And this is before we get to the budget. Growth is 0%, no sign of productivity. I mean, how on earth is Rachel Reeves going to survive this winter of discontent?
Look, I think people are right to be concerned, and I think Rachel Reeves herself is concerned, and indeed Keir Starmer, who's brought in lots of the sort of Treasury team and the responsibility for the budget into number 10. I mean, I think that's a statement of intent. It's a do-or-die moment, and what I'd like to see the Labour Party do is be radical, be more radical, accept that events have overtaken them, times has changed, these fiscal rules need to be amended, broken, whatever, some manifesto pledges need to be communicated properly, but, you know, manifesto pledges around income tax and so on, we need to say things have changed so drastically.
And we need to put
so much
taxes
worse than we expected, that we will raise taxes, but do it in a way that explains to the country why we're doing it, what the trade-offs are, and I think the country can take it.
Well, Lara Brown, I mean, if Labour are going to say this is why we're putting your taxes up, presumably they're going to say we went on a public sector pay binge, we crippled businesses with national insurance tax rises, and we didn't manage to get any growth that we promised.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible they may have to put taxes up as the last-ditch only option they have, but that will be completely their fault. They spaffed so much money on stupid things in their first few months, and then they introduced attempts to raise taxes that massively hindered growth. But I think the part of this that isn't getting enough attention is that the cost of borrowing reacts to the way a country is being governed.
Yeah.
So because Rachel Reeves is so incompetent and because they can't get stuff through and they can't do the welfare cuts, borrowing costs have become extremely high. So we're not just borrowing more than they've borrowed for 5 years, we're borrowing at a much higher rate. And that is debt we're going to pass on to our grandchildren.
And much higher, by the way, than that peak of the Liz Truss premiership. I mean, I'm curious, at this point in the Liz Truss premiership, much of Westminster was having a meltdown. How can this person possibly stay in office? Yet under Keir Starmer, we have higher borrowing costs, yet nobody really is having the same kind of meltdown that we saw under Liz Truss.
Yeah. When we saw gilt rates and we saw borrowing costs get this bad under Liz Truss, we had on the front page of every paper, Liz Truss has crashed the economy. You will never recover from this. And we're now quietly sleepwalking into a much more messy and much worse situation because obviously it's going to continue and there's no real attempt to change fiscal policy in the next few years. And I'm not hearing much discussion of how bad this is going to be.
Indeed, but there is some positive news, however, because the chief executive of US tech company Nvidia has claimed that the UK, contrary to what we've just been suggesting, is the best country to invest your money in. That's right, as he prepares to invest £2 billion worth in British startups. Listen to this.
It's a golden moment for UK because of several reasons. One, this is the home of some of the finest research that's done. You know, in order for AI to advance, you have to have AI research. And the researchers here, the universities here are fantastic. This is the third largest AI startups ecosystem in the world, only behind United States and China. And so I think that the moment is right. It's just missing the infrastructure.
Well, he predicts that the AI industry will flourish in the UK and will be responsible for the country's first $1 trillion business. Nvidia has called it an AI industrial revolution and says it will work closely with partners to build AI infrastructure for the UK. Well, what do we make of that?
All right, let's go through this. I think there's reason for optimism. This is a big test for the government, and I'm not, confident in our ability to survive tests. The good news is, because we left the EU, we don't have to do their terrible AI regulation. We can do our own stuff. That's an opportunity. The other good news is we've got lots of talent here. We've got lots of researchers. That's great. But there's two big problems. The first is we don't have the infrastructure, and we have a sclerotic planning system that makes that very hard to sort out. We need to intervene on that one. The second is that AI companies, AI tech, requires loads of energy, and they cannot function with our current energy prices, which are the highest in the G7. So unless there's going to be some intervention on net zero to bring prices down, we're not going to be able to get that wave of investment and that wave of growth that we on the cusp of securing.
It doesn't appear, Kai Wilshaw, that our economy, our country, is as open to business as perhaps that CEO was implying. Surely, in order to keep guys like that interested in the UK, energy prices, as Laura Brown says, have to come down dramatically. Regulation has to be stripped away. Corporate taxes have to come down. We can't be clobbering these businesses with national insurance tax rises and the rest of it. And we have to have less of an anti-business, anti-wealth attitude in Westminster.
Well, you heard the guy. Jensen Huang is one of the most in-demand people in global business and tech. Really in demand. NVIDIA's chip-making business is the gold star in the US tech ecosystem, right? And to hear him say that and to highlight our research and universities ecosystem, really matters. Now, I can just, all the sort of policy areas that you just mentioned, or policy interventions, imagine if we did even some of those, and if the growth program that the government has started continues, imagine how much better things could be and how much happier Jensen Huang would be.
Well, things can only get better, apparently. Well, coming up next in Mad in Conversation, I'm going to be speaking to a top Republican campaigner to find out what the average person in America really thinks about something Donald Trump alluded to during his second state visit this week, President Trump, which is our immigration crisis. I'll be speaking to that American in 1 minute. See you shortly.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here We do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin, right here on GB News, the People's Channel. Now it's time for Matt in Conversation, that part of the show where each week I sit down for a frank, no-nonsense discussion with somebody I think is really interesting. Well, tonight we're going to be getting stuck into Britain's immigration crisis and specifically the impression it's creating on the other side of the pond. Because this week, President Trump hit Blighty and he said what we are all thinking. Let's be honest, he said what we're thinking about Britain's broken borders.
It doesn't matter if you call out the military, it doesn't matter what means you use, but it's going to destroys countries from within. And we're actually now removing a lot of the people that came into our country. It's a very hard chore. We were given a very, very bad hand. Millions of people came in from prisons and mental institutions. We have to remove them. And we are removing them. We have no choice, and I feel very strongly about it.
Well, migration, in my opinion, is destroying Britain too. Just look at those red bars that you can see on the screen. For those who are listening, we're showing a chart which is showing an explosion in the number of migrants coming into this country from outside of Europe. The red bars are showing you migration into the UK from outside of European nations, which has risen dramatically in recent years, leaving many people wondering what is happening to the country and perhaps no longer even recognising it. Meanwhile, President Trump has managed to secure America's borders, of course, with illegal migration falling to basically zero since he re-entered the White House. So after President Trump slammed immigration on his state visit to Britain, what are Americans making of our crisis? Well, I'm delighted to be joined tonight by the Republican Overseas UK spokesperson, Jennifer Ewing. Jennifer, the UK's immigration crisis, just cut through the noise. Tell us, what do Americans really think when they look at the UK?
Sure. So I think that, and I've lived here for 20 years, I've loved this country, and over the last 20 years, you really do not hear Americans talking a lot about the United Kingdom, the news in the United Kingdom, unless it's about the royal family, with the exception of, say, the last year or so.
Yeah.
And what people are talking about are the free speech worries, of course, the grooming gangs, and also the illegal immigration crisis that people see. They see the dinghies coming across, you know, that are mostly full of young men without women and children. And of course, what Trump has managed to do, and this is what he was elected to do, it was one of the top 2 issues, was to close the border and get illegal immigration under control. He's done that very well. We will recall he ran on that in 2015, you know, and people called him xenophobic and, you know, racist and all this. And he started to build the wall, and he did quite well. Of course, the Biden administration came in, and they reversed all of that, and we saw what happened. So now we're back to closing the borders. So I think what he was trying to tell the Prime Minister yesterday is, you guys need to get a handle on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say before it's too late, because I think there still is hope, right? We are an island over here, right? It's a much smaller country than the United States of America. It should be fairly
you'd
easy.
think it would be straightforward to control the borders.
You would think so. And look, as you might not realize this if you watch just the average television or read the average newspaper in America, but Trump has 57% approval rating on his handle of the border. He doesn't have over 50% on almost anything. So people like this in the United States of America. Even Democrats, if they won't really admit it, they probably do. The other people who really benefited from a lot of the closing of the border are the legal migrants to the Americans. So where I come from in California, you know, some of the greatest American dream stories are from legal Mexicans.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they build small businesses, they have families, and it's their neighborhoods that are being affected by this. So I think Trump just is saying to his pal here, the Prime Minister, like, you really need to get a handle on this.
I mean, I have a lot of people from minority backgrounds who say the same to me here on social media and so on. For example, a lot of British Indians or people who came into the country in the 60s and 70s, and they say, look, we played by the rules.
Yeah.
We played by the rules, we paid our taxes, we went to work, and what's this system of chaos that is now basically allowing rule breakers into the country? Let me just ask you about something else that we saw this week. President Trump and Prime Minister Starmer sat there being asked about free speech. And Keir Starmer said, we do not have any issues with free speech here. We have free speech. You are connected to the Republican world. I know you know many influential people. You're in that world. What do you think President Trump and his team are really thinking about free speech in the UK? Because I noticed he held back at that point in the press conference. He didn't quite rise up. He didn't quite say anything in response to Keir Starmer. But you could tell there was a look of scepticism, I think it's fair to say, on President Trump's face.
I think you're right. I think the answer to the first question is I think they're horrified. I think they're really horrified. Not only the President of the United States, the Vice President, and a lot of American citizens. I mean, we don't have hate speech laws in the U.S. It's very difficult to, you know, basically even find incitement of violence. It has to pass the Brandenburg test, which is imminent and likely, right? So that's pretty hard to pass. So, you know, when I go back home or I talk to Americans, they say, are people really getting arrested and thrown into prison for tweets or for praying silently outside of an abortion clinic? So I think the president was actually quite elegant in not jumping all over the prime minister yesterday. Maybe it was the fabulous pomp and ceremony that he had the day before, but yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe President Trump will open up an asylum route for Brits fleeing Keir Starmer's Labour government. You never know. Now, listen, don't forget, this Monday is the launch of The Late Show Live. OK?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live starts Monday night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wow, that looks fantastic. Well, look, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. Stick around because we've got a great show coming up right after Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin. Stay safe. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a wet start to the weekend for some, with a Met Office warning in force for heavy rain across northern and western areas. A much chillier day for all from Sunday onwards. Back to this evening though, and we've got this lingering weather front slowly edging its way southwestwards, dragging in some cloud and plenty of outbreaks of rain. This is set to continue through the overnight period, pushing more outbreaks of rain across parts of Wales, southwest England. This could be heavy at times. Otherwise, it should be mostly dry, just a few blustery showers clipping into the far northwest of Scotland and western coasts of Northern Ireland. But with plenty of cloud around, it should be a mostly mild night, temperatures dropping between 8 to 9 degrees Celsius in Scotland. Then to start off the weekend, in Scotland, yes, we're still going to continue to see blustery showers across the far north and northwest. Elsewhere, though, it should be mostly dry. Some showers starting to clip western coasts of Northern Ireland, and it is going to be a very wet start across northern parts of England, similar across Wales and southwest England too, where we could still see some quite heavy downpours of rain first thing on Saturday. Now, this system will slowly try to edge its way southeastwards. It's fairly slow moving, but it will eventually move into central parts of England, parts of the south too. A rain warning has been issued, so a chance we could see some localised flooding. A mix of sunny spells and showers across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, perhaps merging into some areas of persistent rain across Northern Ireland later. Staying mostly dry across the southeast, that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures. Not feeling quite as warm as Friday, but highs still reaching around 23 degrees Celsius. Now on Sunday there are still set to be some spells of rain, turning into brighter spells and showers by the afternoon, but with a northerly flow of wind, things are set to feel a little bit chillier, particularly across Scotland in the strengthening breeze. Into next week it should be mostly dry and sunny, but the chilly feel is here to stay, and it's likely we'll even start to see some overnight frost.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.